Hello, and welcome to our special tribute to Keiko. I'm Joe Donlin, and we here at Northwest News Channel 8 are glad you've bought this permanent record of Keiko, his life in Mexico, his move to Newport in 1996, his rehabilitation, and his return to Iceland in September of 1998. We spent less than 3 years together, but our memories of Keiko will last a lifetime. Now, join me for a collection of some of our most memorable News Channel 8 stories as we begin Keiko's long journey home.
Keiko, the 3.5-ton killer whale, known to millions of moviegoers as Willy, is today 1 ton underweight and is plagued by a skin disease. But soon, Keiko will be airlifted from Mexico north to Oregon.
This is a magnificent animal. He deserves to have a good home, and he deserves to have a good shot at a release in the wild.
At a jammed news conference, officials revealed a multi-million-dollar plan to house Keiko in a new Oregon Coast Aquarium exhibit. He'll arrive in a big wooden box.
A lot of logistics involved to figure out what size plane that box will fit in.
During an era in which private fundraising can be difficult, friends of the aquarium here and the whale expect little difficulty in raising $10 million. Rarely, if ever, experts say, has so much money been raised to save a single animal. Killer whales like Keiko roam the world's oceans in large numbers. They are not threatened or endangered. And biologists concede privately there is scant scientific reason to save one killer whale. But visitors are likely to mob the aquarium anyhow. The whale will be a huge draw.
Somewhere between 100 and 200,000 approximately.
More people every year
will come to see Keiko.
His pool will be built here in time for his arrival late this year. And Keiko will be pampered in Oregon, not because the whale is rare, but because a Hollywood movie made him famous.
Cameras from around the world record what's considered an international event. Rain-soaked children and well-wishers wait in Newport to welcome Keiko to his new home. The killer whale has become an international symbol, a cause for animal advocates touched by his story and his plight, made public after the movie Free Willy.
And people figured out that he wasn't really free, as in the movie. They wanted to do something to help him, and that story's just been progressing for years, and it's just coming to a culmination now. It's building to a real crescendo.
Keiko spent 15 of his last 17 years in captivity, the last 10 here at this Mexico City amusement park, where his health has gone downhill. He's 2,000 pounds underweight, he has skin lesions, and in spite of the performances which have delighted Mexican crowds, his trainers say he's lethargic. Trainers at his new home say that's about to change.
They'll be working with him constantly all day long. They actually want to keep him a lot more active than he is in Mexico City. Down there between his shows, he basically just floats on top of the pool, kind of lazing around. He's a pretty lazy, bored whale, so we're not going to let him be bored here.
Keiko's days of performing are over. In Oregon, he'll be taught how to hunt, how to take care of himself, in the hopes he might someday be freed. But even the optimists say it's a long shot.
We don't know if it's possible or not. It's the first time it's ever going to be tried, and we hope it's a success. If not, Keiko will have a great home here for the rest of his life.
From Sky 8, you can see it's a whale of a home. It's Keiko's sparkling new 2-million-gallon pool, surrounded by a $7 million whale complex. The only thing missing down there now is the guest of honor himself.
Water in it, that's all it needs.
As construction crews hustle to get ready for Keiko's arrival this weekend, everyone knows the stakes are high.
I'm already a hair nervous, but I know Keiko will be transported. He's in good hands.
The star of the 1993 hit movie Free Willy, Keiko has been languishing in poor health, cramped and overheated in a sticky Mexico City amusement park. On Sunday, though, he'll get the ride of his life. Loaded into a special water-filled steel and wool and canvas contraption, then airlifted to the strip at Newport, Oregon. The flight up from Mexico will take 10 long hours.
Cute.
Meantime, at the Oregon Coast Aquarium, which is already teeming with marine life, they're expecting Keiko will draw this year at least 1/3 new visitors.
Finally, he's going to be able to be free. I think that's the best part.
He's coming here.
Keiko is, huh?
Yes.
Logistics. On Sunday, after he touches down in Newport, Keiko will be loaded on a flatbed truck and will slowly roll out onto the Oregon Coast Highway. The convoy carrying Keiko will not be stopping for any traffic lights. Keiko will enjoy a police escort as he moves north, and hundreds, possibly thousands of people will line Highway 101. Cruising 3.5 miles north on the Coast Highway, Keiko will hang a quick right at the famous Yaquina Bay Bridge, and then he'll be home. A special crane will hoist the 7,000-pound big guy his final few feet.
That's going to be the coup de grace.
The whale arriving.
The whale arriving, you bet. That's what we all want to see.
The old saying is, pigs can't fly. But on Sunday, in Oregon, a whale will.
Keiko touched down in Oregon just before 3 this afternoon as UPS workers unloaded their precious 3.5 tons of cargo. Thousands of people lined the streets of Newport for a glimpse at their new celebrity neighbor.
I'm waiting to see my sweetheart, my darling, my precious Keiko.
And though he couldn't exactly be seen, Keiko's motorcade drew cheers.
We just want to see the whale come by. Really cool.
He's famous. He's coming to a better place for him, too. We're going to try and help him out.
Getting him out of his travel harness took some time, but after nearly an hour of maneuvering, Keiko entered his new, improved watery world. He seemed to take right away to the new surroundings. The next step is to nurse him back to health. You can see he has skin lesions. Plus, Keiko is 2,000 pounds underweight. Doctors here can't believe they have a chance to treat the star of Free Willy.
The number of people around the world that have been brought into the plight of Keiko, it just makes us feel an incredible sense of accomplishment. And we're just, I think we're just numb right now, but we feel like we've really done something special for this animal, and hopefully through that for the way people view all marine animals.
This particular marine animal seems to have a lot going for him.
This is as close as Newport gets to a really big parade. But in this case, there was to be no band and only one float. They lined the parade route in weather fit for a whale.
It isn't every day a whale comes to Newport.
No kidding.
We just want to see the whale come by. Really cool.
They waited. Newport's killer surprise package was a little bit late on Sunday, but nobody seemed to mind.
I just want to kiss him. That's all I want to do. I just want to love him. I want to be his mother, his friend, his whatever.
And this is more than just an event for Newport and the Oregon coast, because this is more than just your average killer whale coming to town. Keiko is a famous movie star, so this move is attracting attention from around the world. There were hundreds of members of the media to cover Keiko's arrival, some from around the world. And this is what they were all waiting for: touchdown, or for Keiko inside a tank of water in that C-130 splashdown. You could tell by the signs outside of the container that there was a whale on board, but that was about it. It took crew members about 45 minutes to get that whale off of that airplane. But then he pleased everybody on the 2-mile, 30-minute route to the aquarium. And that is what Keiko's new home in Oregon is all about. They want people to come and see. And after Sunday, it won't be a fish, or actually a mammal, out of water. It will be Keiko in his new home in Oregon.
The cheers grew. The welcoming committee lined the road, celebrating its newest, most famous resident. Keiko the killer whale was hoisted by a 3-story high crane. All 7,000 pounds lifted one final time into his new home, ending a 14-hour-long international journey.
People began lining up outside the Oregon Coast Aquarium at 7 in the morning, 3 hours before opening, to be among the first. Once inside, they couldn't wait to rush in and snap a picture, forever freezing their first encounter with Keiko the killer whale.
Wow!
It's all this little tyke could say, and Keiko lived up to all expectations. The 7,700-pound killer whale slowly made his way from window to window, peering down at those peering up at him.
This animal is magnificent in every way. It surprises me. These windows are absolutely huge. The animal's bigger than the windows.
After spending nearly 20 hours in a plane, Keiko's in pretty good spirits. He's eating and breathing well, and as much as a whale can, Keiko seems to be putting his stamp of approval on a new $7 million home.
He's making sounds that he'd never made in Mexico before, so we think that that's another indication that this facility is going to be one that's going to allow him to really stretch out, put on some weight, and hopefully be able to learn the skills necessary to survive in the wild.
That is the goal, to eventually set Free Willy free, but that possibility is a long way off. And now that Willy, Keiko, has made Newport his home, he is among friends.
He's pretty. He's big.
Does he look like he did in the movie?
No. He has that mildew stuff on him now.
Don't worry, that's not mildew, just a lanolin-based lubricant helped keep Keiko wet during the trip north. It's the last journey Keiko will make for some time. For now, he's got a bigger tank, better food, and an incredible view.
What are we coming here for?
The children who come to the Oregon Coast Aquarium expect to see a friend they met at the movies.
He's short and fierce and burly.
Willy. Lexington wants to see the killer whale he saw in the movie Free Willy.
Do it the other arm.
In real life, people call him Keiko, and bringing Keiko to Oregon isn't as simple as movie magic.
No? Hello?
Just ask Phyllis Bell.
I'm going to go take him over to the tank.
If you can catch up with her. Between the Discovery Channel, Seattle TV,
with cold natural seawater in it that we pump in
the
from
national press,
Life magazine,
and briefing the photographer she hired herself.
How are we going to do this? I'm going to be right down here when they pull up the whale.
This rush of reporters is about to reach flood stage.
Well, I think the last count last night was close to 325 members of the media. It's a lot of people.
All to see the teenage movie star Keiko, who is not in the best of health these days. He's swimming in Mexico City tap water treated with salt. The water is too warm. Keiko isn't eating well. He's not getting enough exercise. That's why he's making this $9 million move.
Here's the plan. A semi will ride up here. Keiko will be in a box. Then a large crane will go over and lift Keiko out in his canvas sling. At that point, you'll be able to see Keiko's fins and his nose. Then it will swing over and drop him in the pool. This shallow area here is for staff to stand so they can guide him into the water. In Newport, Keiko will swim in filtered natural seawater, chilled to match his home waters of Iceland. Divers will vacuum his pool every day.
To start, the first thing you want to look for is the first time he eats, and they want to make sure he eats.
With all these preparations, we can look. As Keiko builds the strength he needs to return to the wild, we can walk right up and watch in person.
Come here, wow, this is incredible.
Cameras in hand, they scramble for a first look as Keiko is formally introduced to the crowds. Still recovering from his 19-hour-long trip, the most famous of orca whales takes a few leisurely laps around his new $7 million pool.
Welcome to the aquarium.
Outside, lines of ardent admirers, young and old, wait for a chance to see Keiko up close.
There seemed to be a special feeling between people and those animals.
Her sister got so worked up she's sick, so she couldn't make it.
It was late, dark, and so we decided to spend one more night and get to see him, you know, underneath the water.
Oregon welcomed Keiko with loud cheers and open arms Sunday, excited to see a bit of history being made. It's the first time animal advocates have tried an experiment quite this bold, moving Keiko from his cramped quarters here for rehabilitation in the hopes of releasing him back into the wild.
He's been swimming actively, he's been eating, he's been very calm, his respiration rate's just fine, so he actually did way better than we thought. I consider it was a 19-hour trip, and that's a long trip for a 7,000-pound whale.
Keiko won't perform anymore. He's on to the more serious tasks of learning survival skills. But the Oregon crowds are enamored by his every move, every pose, as he settles into his new home. It's a lot like the lines at Disneyland, an hour-plus long wait outside the Oregon Coast Aquarium. They're all here to see Keiko the whale, the famous orca who arrived from Mexico special delivery 6 days ago, destined for a better life in captivity and a chance to be freed. It's his first full weekend at his new home, and like a magnet, he's drawing a long, non-stop line of cars, fans who've come a long ways for a look. At times, this line stretched a quarter mile.
Can't wait to see him.
We're from Junction City in Springfield, Oregon. This is Brianna and Riley, and brought her to see. Who'd you come to see? Keiko.
Oh, we just came out for the day, just to bring the family out. My mom came all the way from California just to come see him.
They watched Free Willy last night just to get ready for it.
Once inside, they're stacked 10 deep with kids on the inside, awed by Keiko's every dive, every lap around his luxury pool. Keiko's trainers say it's hard to say who's watching whom.
Sometimes when he's just absolutely fascinated by someone or something on the public side, and he'll just sink and just sit there and watch.
After only 6 days, Keiko's way ahead of the original goals. He's already responding to his new trainers and swimming a lot more than before.
He has much more room to stretch out and swim in a much more natural pattern, seeing the increase in his diet from where it was in Mexico City to here.
Mike Glenn's worked with whales in captivity for 30 years, but he's never seen anything like this kind of attraction before.
It has to be from the movie itself, and then once his plight became known.
Keiko's become a bona fide 3-ton international celebrity who now calls Oregon home.
Keiko's appetite has become voracious here in Oregon. The whale is now eating like a wolf. It's double his Mexico City diet, up to 200 pounds every day or more of raw herring, sardines, salmon, squid.
Keiko's doing great. We're very pleased. He's gotten a lot better, a lot quicker than we thought.
People are coming to visit Keiko's new Oregon home in staggering numbers. 45-minute waits in line are not uncommon. Adults paying $8 a head. Already, some 200,000 visitors have filed in, with few apparent regrets.
He's neat. He's cool. He's cute. He's 16. I've never seen anything like it.
Look at me, look at me, look at me.
Keiko's trainers and caretakers are trying now, with handfuls of fish offered as enticement, to get him moving in different ways. New ways of breaching, for example. The behavior mod is working.
He just stuck his tongue out of his mouth, which was totally new. It's totally different. So he came up with something that said, well, if I do this, maybe I'll get a fish for it. And that's the whole idea, to make him think on his own.
Keiko was airlifted from Mexico to Oregon just 2 months ago. Now, swimming in cooler water, breathing cooler air, and pampered in the extreme, Keiko the movie star whale is not merely surviving, he is thriving.
He looks like he's just cruising. Just cruising along.
Witness an extraordinary mammal-to-mammal phenomenon.
That is worth the wait.
Gracefully moved.
People 5 and 6 deep pressing and craning to spy on a killer whale. The line stretches out the door. People from
Salem,
Seattle,
Atlanta, Georgia.
waiting hours to see
Keiko.
Well, Keiko.
Came here to see Keiko, of course.
10,000 people lined up to see this whale this week.
This is more than we expected or even planned on, so we've had to call in extra staff.
These people got through the line out front, pushed their way to the window, and still waited another hour and a half.
Well, he's famous, celebrity.
He's a huge celebrity, all too literally.
And don't think Keiko doesn't know it.
He's going to breach. Oh.
He can see those people as well as they can see him. Keiko's trainers say he is loving every whale-adoring minute of it. Keiko lives out the dream of every teenage male. One twitch of his pelvis sends a thrill through the crowd. Of course, he has to endure all the blabbing about his lack of blubber.
They've already tried him on squid, and he doesn't like it.
And everyone openly scrutinizing his complexion.
And then you can see the skin warts he's got there.
His skin should clear up in the natural salt water, and swimming in this bigger tank should help Keiko build up his physique. No hurry. It's clear that people love Keiko just the way he is.
Every day, 6 times a day, Keiko is on the fast track at his new home.
It's time for the big guy to work. He's in a big pool. And he was in a pool in Mexico that was about 4 times smaller. And so we feel like he's never reached his potential.
They're using whistles, hand gestures, and food to coax Keiko into a new exercise routine. It's working. His appetite has nearly tripled since coming to his cold water luxury pool at the Oregon Coast Aquarium. His longtime trainers from Mexico say he's already showing signs of filling out, firming up, feeling good.
I look at him and he's doing so well that I just, he's really swimming a lot, he's eating a lot, he's so hungry, and he really likes the windows. He really likes to watch the people there.
And they love to watch him. Thousands make the trek to Newport, hoping for an exchange like this with the famous orca whale, who has such a hold on kids and grown-ups' heartstrings.
We hardly see him in the surface anymore because he's curious around the windows. He looks at the people and he likes that.
His new trainers say it's easy to connect with Keiko because he loves people and wants to cooperate.
We want his brain to work as well as his body, so we don't feed from one position up here. We move all over the pool. He's got to find us. We may move staff members all over the pool. Everybody's got a bucket, and we'll send him running back and forth between each other.
Trainers say they're making stellar progress because Keiko seems up for each new challenge every day. In Newport, Kelly Love, KGW Northwest News, Channel 8.
Looking beyond the delightful dance between Keiko and his fans, Keiko's new playground has a serious purpose.
Right now, we're just trying to get his activity level up and his daily food intake up to where it should be.
Keiko has health problems. For starters, he's too skinny. But his appetite is already improving. He's already eating more than in Mexico City, and his trainers hope to double his intake by next week.
We've also seen a change in his activity level. He's spending more and more time swimming. He now has the opportunity to really kind of stretch out.
Keiko is finally getting the exercise he needs to build his muscles. The pool in Mexico City was a quarter the size of this tank and gave him about as much room to swim as Willard Scott in a hot tub.
Oh!
That takes us to that drooping dorsal fin. It got that way in part because his pool was so shallow he spent too much time at the surface.
Another thing about that dorsal fin, it's about 4 feet high, and in Mexico City, Keiko could only swim in one direction. Pretty soon that fin started to lean, and then gravity took over, and the fin flopped. That dorsal fin will probably never recover.
His trainers think Keiko can survive in the wild even with the floppy fin, as long as he learns how to catch fish.
Are they just something else in his pool, or does he actively search, hunt, kill, and consume?
That is worth the wait.
It's impossible to tell Keiko's admirers not to get attached, but remember, he's here only to gain the strength he needs to leave captivity.
Keiko! Oh, well!
On the road to healing him, trainers and staff have come to track Keiko's every physical development. Now researchers are trying to understand the whale on a higher level. What does Keiko think? Some visitors to the aquarium have answers.
What do you think Keiko's thinking when you see him?
Having fun in the water? I kind of think he's sad because he's locked up in a cage.
Scientists may soon be hearing Keiko's thoughts.
If Keiko is making vocalizations, those vocalizations would show up on that screen.
Researchers at the aquarium have just installed special underwater microphones, cameras, and a computer to see what goes through Keiko's mind. More specifically, they're learning about Keiko's behavior, what actions link up with which noises. The whale's caretakers say they must understand this knowledge before they can release Keiko.
We have to know if Keiko can echolocate. To be able to survive in the wild, he must be able to do that. He has to be able to see and hear, and he has to be able to eat live fish.
Before Keiko, researchers had been primarily studying whales from the surface and above the water.
Now, with this new research equipment, scientists can observe Keiko from above and underwater 24 hours a day.
This gives us a more natural idea as to what he's doing when there's nobody around. And so you're seeing natural behavior out of him, not man-induced.
Plus, researchers say man will know much more about killer whales overall by observing how Oregon's favorite whale behaves.
He's looking at you.
How much do you guess that Keiko the whale weighs?
50 pounds. 1,000.
How much?
80 pounds.
Today, some adults, Keiko's vets and keepers, decided to find out. Using a specially rigged construction crane, Keiko's large staff carefully eased the big mammal into an oversized canvas sling. For the first time in a year and a half, lifting the ex-movie star right out of his personal pool.
They want to know how he's doing, his ongoing progress. He's been doing phenomenal. We just want to see how phenomenal he's doing.
With the keen media attention that often greets Keiko's every move, his vets unveil the whale's new weight, a bit over 9,500 pounds.
He's very close to wild standards, but we're not going to let him off the hook at this point. We'll continue to push him and exercise him every day.
Since his arrival from Mexico, Keiko has gained nearly 1 ton in weight. Lots of fresh herring has helped. To visitors, what that means is a now 5-ton whale, healthier and beefier than ever.
Whoa!
Keiko will call the shots.
The voice should sound familiar.
Recently,
maybe the faces too. Jean-Michel is the son of the great ocean researcher Jacques Cousteau.
We now need to find out.
The younger Cousteau has now joined the friends of the most famous killer whale in the world and the unprecedented effort to set the mammal free. He's taken a position on the Free Willy Keiko Foundation Board of Directors, and he sends no mixed message. Cousteau says Keiko should be set free.
We are presently looking at the next step. And the next step is to bring Keiko in a controlled environment, which will be nonetheless in the ocean. So for the first time, since he's been captured, he will be in an ocean environment which will allow him to hear, listen, communicate in the world that he should have been left in the first place.
Cousteau's talking about some kind of sea pin in the Atlantic Ocean where Keiko could learn to survive in the wild but still get some help from humans. And the whale's recent clean bill of health from an independent group of vets and researchers is a step in that direction. Cousteau says the whale will set the timetable for when that will occur.
What's interesting is that Keiko is probably going to be ready before we are, because it takes time to set the animal into a new environment. It takes a lot of precaution.
Probably much like what we saw 2 years ago when Keiko made his way to Oregon. Only this time, Keiko will be saying goodbye.
As he leaps out of the water, it's almost as if Keiko knows he's finally headed home after nearly 2 decades in captivity. Keiko was only 2 in 1979 when he was plucked from the waters off Iceland. Now he's going back. The Prime Minister made it official after a year negotiating with the foundation set up to make Free Willy truly free.
We're all very pleased. I feel as though the staff and I have had our foot nailed to the gas pedal and our hand on the emergency brake for the past month or so, waiting for an answer.
Beverly Hughes is president of the Free Willy Keiko Foundation. She says that the emergency brake is now off for good. Between now and the beginning of September, activity around Keiko's pen in Newport will be feverish. 450 different activities must take place to ready Keiko and Keiko's Bay pen in Iceland. Keiko's trainers take measurements of his blubber density, information that'll tell them how he's doing once he's moved from here. It's a tight time schedule. Construction nearly round the clock in Iceland, hard training in Newport. All must be in readiness in less than 3 months.
So we know that if we can't accomplish this by a certain date in September, then we must wait until spring.
And says Beverly Hughes, even though Keiko is moving one step closer to freedom, it doesn't assure he'll one day swim the open ocean again.
We are only moving him to another captive situation, so there is no proof right now. We're just going to move him to a better, it's been a wonderful life here. We're going to enhance that one more time.
Iceland's views are unforgettable, but until the Free Willy Foundation chose it, it was a country unknown to most of us. The news channel has the first extensive look at Keiko's new home. Iceland's interior has rugged mountains and high plateaus nestled next to deep coves. The coast is rough and windy. Researchers have already checked out the cove that will soon be Keiko's home. It's a place where they hope he'll learn to fend for himself.
Well, it's a beautiful place. There are some issues revolving around it, its depth. It looks like it's well protected, but it's not quite deep enough, so there may be some dredging that has to be done there. The mayor has assured us that's something he's going to look into doing for us, potentially.
Icelanders do seem excited about their newcomer. They recently baked a welcome Keiko cake, carrying it through town. On our end, preparations are moving along. The cargo plane carrying Keiko's pen took off from Seattle's Boeing Field early this morning. Icelanders built their own welcome mat, a killer whale on the beach with volcanic rock and seaweed. Real killer whales are a common sight to Icelanders. In fact, it's where Keiko was born and captured at the age of 2.
Keiko gets a front row seat as his caretakers show off a model of his next home. Though it looks small, it is actually 60% larger than Keiko's cement pool in Newport.
This side will be where we'll tie up our boats.
Jeff Foster helped design the pen. It will be made of 30-inch foam-filled PVC pipe and thick nylon mesh. When set down in the middle of a North Atlantic bay, it will give Keiko a whole new world of experience.
There's never been anything of this size. And in a captive environment, it's a very sterile environment. You don't hear the sounds and the noises that you normally would in the wild. Plus, you don't have the tidal movement and wave action. So this will be a totally different than what he's used to. So
for most of his life, Keiko has had only himself to listen to, and the view out Keiko's windows has been filled with people, not other sea creatures. Those charged with caring for Keiko hope the new environment of the sea will awaken an urge in the killer whale to return to the open ocean.
We've always known what our goals were, so it's not going to be like you're losing a member of the family. It's just going to be that he has been a big part of our lives now for a couple years, and so though we'll stay in his life, it will be very different.
Patty Panther visits Keiko often. For her, the idea that he's really leaving brings up mixed emotions.
Whatever's good for him.
You gonna miss him?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
This one's good and lively. He's following it.
His trainers want Keiko out of this tank and chasing fish in the North Atlantic sometime this fall. That's where Ralph Ford comes in. He's been researching killer whales for 5 years, but he makes a living welding pipe. Now he's part of a 20-man crew building a floating pen for Keiko.
It's real rewarding to have a job where you're actually doing something that you've been involved in and your heart's in it too.
The company's built floating pens like this one before, using pipe about 12 to 18 inches round and weighing about 200 pounds apiece. But Keiko's pen is a much bigger task. Here they're using pipe that's 2,000 pounds, it's 50 inches in diameter, and when they're done, it'll be the size of a football field. That pipe is rock-hard plastic. Once it's cut, crews weld each section together. They heat both sides with a 450-degree hot plate. Here you can see the plastic melt and start to roll back. Once that happens, they pull out the plate and splice the two pieces together.
And it's as strong as, or stronger than the original pipe.
Those bonds are built to withstand pounding waves and other hazards in the sea.
They're very buoyant. What we do is we foam fill them. The reason the foam filling goes in there is for if there's any holes punctured or anything like that, any leaks in it, the foam filling offsets the water so they don't sink.
This is what the finished product will look like. It'll be ready for its new tenants in another 2 months. And Ralph Ford says over those next 2 months, he'll be saving up vacation time so he can see Keiko swimming in his new pen in person.
It takes the world's largest commercial freight aircraft to haul a new home for the world's most popular killer whale. 180,000 pounds of metal, plastic, aluminum, and rubber being loaded into the belly of a Russian-built Antonov. Keiko himself is no lightweight at 10,000 pounds. Never before has a captive killer whale been rehabilitated and returned to the wild. Though they're not making any promises, sending Keiko's new home to Iceland is a huge step towards fulfilling that dream. Originally, the Free Willy Keiko Foundation was going to ship the Bay pen to Iceland in pieces, but sending it all at once is a lot more convenient.
These guys have been very nice to us and given us a bit of a discount on the price, but it's still a $150,000 airplane ticket.
Much of the crew is Russian, and so is the plane. In fact, the Antonov was built as a Russian military transport, now part of a joint British-Russian venture. The British captain gives us a look into the cockpit. Traveling at 500 miles an hour, it will take one fuel stop in 10 hours to land outside Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. The pen will be taken by ship down to the Westman Islands, to one particular island called Hayman. It'll then take 45 days to assemble, with a crew working 20 hours a day.
If all goes well, Keiko himself will take a long plane ride to Iceland in mid-September.
Even though we're pushing the clock because of Keiko's age in captivity, he appears to be really ready to go.
Hi! That's my boy. That's my boy. There's a camera over there. We got a camera today.
Most days now, it's just Keiko and his trainers. The pool of cameras that followed him here 1 year ago are mostly gone. In fact, a lot has changed since the sick, underweight celebrity made his dramatic entrance at Newport's Oregon Coast Aquarium.
Come on. Keep pushing. Come on. Take that, good.
Physically, he's bigger and stronger and healthier. He can swim faster, jump higher. That's important because if he ever goes back to the wild, he'll have to keep up. Orca whales swim up to 100 miles a day. His trainers say the most exciting change they've seen is happening in his head. We caught up with them for a progress report during the Christmas break.
He's active, he's stimulated. So I'd like to tell people the light's starting to get brighter and brighter. He's starting to use his brain to solve those problems.
It's up to the trainers to come up with new things, new toys for Keiko to try. Like a preschooler, Keiko learns through play.
You're in for it now, sport. You are in for it now. What is that big thing?
We're trying to give him an ever-increasing, changing life. That's what his life, if he does go to the wild, when the foundation makes that next step, that is the type of day his day will be.
What are you doing down there? He's just looking right through the hall. What are you doing?
It's that playfulness the visitors who come to see Keiko love.
I made him smile at me because he waved at me like this.
Kids and grown-ups fascinated by Keiko's life story and the campaign to free the real-life star of Free Willy ask every visit, when can he be set free?
So let's make a run. Come on. Let's make a run. Go.
Keiko's trainers say the first year's been amazing, but he's not ready yet.
Keiko needs to start taking the lead, and so we're gonna be excited to see exactly how far he can go.
We've seen Keiko pull some amazing stunts, like underwater spirals that lead to huge breaches. But we haven't seen him snack on any of these. Till now, live fish haven't been a part of his diet.
1, 2, 3, ate them all.
He's been sucking down dead herring for months, but today we got a rare look at how Keiko reacts to salmon that swim.
Okay, I've got it. Salmon swimming towards the med pool by the gate. Keiko's looking at it.
Here, he hones in on a 10-pound steelhead.
Looked like he bit down on the back end of it. The fish is kind of twitching.
At first, he toys with it, but in a few minutes, trainers celebrate after Keiko swallows his prey.
Good. Good for him. Good. He popped it off.
For now, live fish are strictly a reward. They're tossed in at different times during his training sessions.
If he chooses to go off swimming and ignore a fish, that's his choice. We go on with the session and continue to work.
And while Keiko works on learning to catch and kill new fish, his new floating cage is slowly being pieced together. The hope is to relocate him to the waters of the North Atlantic in a pen like this sometime this fall.
We believe that biologically that is the best place to return Keiko to his natural habitat.
But the foundation says that deal won't be done for at least a couple of weeks. In the meantime, these trainers will keep coaxing Keiko into learning how to fend for himself.
He is catching and eating live fish. That's a big jump in itself. I mean, that's a major breakthrough.
He says getting him to see live fish as a primary source of food on a consistent basis is the next step.
When Keiko takes a breath, he'll dive down into his new 600,000 cubic foot home. The pen's only been in place a few weeks now, but already algae's growing on the woven plastic netting that will keep Keiko in while he prepares to go completely free.
This facility for him is 60% bigger than the pool he lives in Oregon. So I think we're going to put him in this pool and he's going to have a great time swimming back and forth and exploring the water. We've had big schools of fish out here in the bay and the birds are flying around. It's going to be interesting to watch him in his world again and watch the changes in him, because I think we'll see some dramatic ones.
Keiko's new pen sits in a bay in the Westman Islands near the town of Jaime. It is 250 feet long and 100 feet wide. It is surrounded by the netting that drops 25 feet below the surface. It's hooked to the sea floor by 24 extremely strong rubber bungee cords connected to 2 rings on the bottom of the pen. More of the bungee cords are hooked into the top perimeter of the pen. They also snake down to the bottom, where they're either connected by large bits drilled into the ocean floor or to huge, heavy World War II anchors.
When we had the really high winds 2 weeks ago, we have some film footage that we shot from the overlook where the cars park, and this pen was solid as a rock. The big waves in the bay, and the pen wasn't moving at all.
Icelandic crew members now working with the Free Willy Keiko Foundation are amazed at the floating pen built in Washougal, Washington. One crew member says every screw and every bolt is in perfect form.
He's saying that it's absolutely magnificent. He has seen some pens before, and he said this one by far is the most outstanding one of anything he's seen. He'll feel so good here. With all the bird life and all the sea life, he'll feel wonderful here.
There we go.
Besides the trainers pulling backstrokes with Keiko in his pool, there are a couple of people here in the aquarium gallery who know this whale better than anyone else.
He's humongous.
They aren't the Free Willy connoisseurs like these gawkers in the front row who've seen his movies more times than they can count.
I wanted to ride on his back.
I'd like to tell you a little bit about Keiko's pool.
No, the people who know Keiko best are people like Dick Gordon, a man who answers all the questions these young fans and adult ones come up with.
I was just curious how big it was.
His weight, 10,000 pounds plus.
Gordon's one of more than 300 volunteers
His pool that you're looking at,
whose heads are full of facts about this 10,000-pound mammal.
So he's a little over 20 years in age.
Keiko himself is about 21 feet long.
They give visitors a chance to learn about the whale while marveling at his theatrics.
Oh, we can see that one of his trainers is in the pool with him now.
This guy's going to be missed.
Gordon says, like these admirers and much of the world, he's grown attached to Keiko. He spends his last few minutes on duty near the tank answering a few final questions. Then it's off to help out at the sea otter exhibit. Time to say goodbye to an animal he's seen every week now for the last 10 months.
Well, he's an animal that gets to you. You find yourself after a while getting in love with this animal. And many of us are going to be very sad to see him leave.
This monumental day for Keiko started like any other, with a routine workout. Trainers say the unsuspecting Keiko eagerly swam into his medical pen, and his trainers easily slipped a sling around him. His journey had begun. Keiko's covered in ointment to help keep him wet. Trainers give every attention to detail and safety. They keep him cool, dumping buckets of ice into his temporary tank. Although this is goodbye to Oregon's beloved whale, the Free Willy Foundation says the Oregon Coast Aquarium should be proud.
This whale, when he arrived in Newport, was in relatively poor health, and for instance, he could only hold his breath for about 3 minutes when he arrived. Today, he can hold his breath for almost 20 minutes, so he's a dramatically different whale.
He's healthier, he's bigger, and we wish him all the luck in the world going to Iceland.
Not only has Keiko's health improved well in Oregon, his fame has as well. As the caravan moved out of the Oregon Coast Aquarium, Keiko's fans say farewell. Then Keiko's caravan heads to the Newport Airport. Inside his 28-foot by 8-foot tank, affectionately called his cradle, Keiko is surrounded by his trainers. 5 of them will move with him to Iceland. Keiko's transportation to Iceland is an enormous C-17. This Free Willy operation is arguably the most money spent on an animal, at least $12 million so far. But the Free Willy Foundation says what it stands for is priceless.
It is really showing the best side of the humankind. We're going into phase 2, which means we have succeeded.
Keiko, the frequent flyer, flew into Newport's airport 45 minutes ahead of schedule. But the only way to see him was with this bird's eye view from Sky 8. On the ground, all you could see was his cradle. The 40,000-pound cradle, which took 24 Air Force reservists a good 10 minutes to move. They gave it a strong heave and a hoe and another shove. Finally, Keiko and company rolled off the UPS flatbed and onto the loader. Then, minutes later, Keiko was brought to the belly of the huge C-17. All other supplies were quickly loaded up, including 3,000 pounds of frozen fish. And finally, at last, it was time to fly. At 6:25, 15 minutes behind schedule, the plane backed up, revved up its engines, and took off. A small crowd, both young and old, waved goodbye to the world's most famous wave.
Oh, it was so exciting. We got to actually go out there and watch it, and it was really neat. It's sad to see him go, but it's wonderful where he's going and what's going to happen, and it's exciting for Newport.
He's been beneficial, and I'm sorry to see him go, but I know that he's going to be happy where he's going.
Any tears today?
A little bit, just a few.
Right now, 4.5 hours into the flight, Keiko's somewhere over Canada. Inside the C-17, his trainers continue to ice him down, keeping his tank a cool 52 degrees in the hopes that he'll go to sleep for the duration of the flight. The crew has refueled once in midair already, with one more refueling to go. The Air Force says Keiko is now halfway home.
By 11 o'clock tonight or so, they should be approximately 2,500 miles into the flight. The flight itself is about 5,200 miles, give or take a mile here or there. So they're halfway there.
We are also told that Keiko is now floating in about 4 feet of water inside his tank, inside that C-17, that he's breathing about once every 1 to 2 minutes, which is just right, exactly what the doctors want. And the veterinarians say he appears to be resting very, very comfortably for a very long flight. So everything appears to be going smoothly at this hour.
The huge Air Force C-17 cargo plane with Keiko aboard landed at just before 3 a.m. Pacific time, 10 a.m. in Jaime, Iceland. The landing was rough, the plane blew tires, but the 9,050-pound precious cargo handled the flight just fine. Fully an hour and 15 minutes later, the killer whale and his temporary tank emerged out of the plane's cargo hold. Just before noon, Icelandic time, crews transferred Keiko onto a flatbed truck for the ride overland. And then a procession very similar to the one that left the Oregon Coast Aquarium yesterday afternoon, headed toward the bay Keiko now will call home. On the road that leads from the airport, you can see the procession dwarfed by the C-17's tail in the background. The Keiko caravan dipped into the town of Jaime. The streets were lined with curious Icelanders, their country and their town in the international spotlight. At exactly 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Iceland, Keiko was lifted onto a barge for the voyage to his new home. It took another 40 minutes before Keiko was lifted from his temporary traveling tank into the waters where he was born. The assembled crew and caretakers and onlookers cheered. Keiko at first swam somewhat lethargically, then picked up the pace, apparently becoming more comfortable by the minute. A handler played with the whale and rubbed off some of the balm applied to keep his skin moist during the long trip. It was the end of an incredible journey from Iceland to Canada to Mexico to Oregon, and now home again.
We followed him from Mexico to Newport to Iceland, and he stole our hearts. We're happy to be donating all the profits from this tape to the Free Willy Keiko Foundation, so the work of keeping Keiko happy and healthy can continue. Whether it's in Iceland or eventually back in the wild, Keiko's future seems to be bright. From all of us here at News Channel 8, thanks for watching our tribute, and thanks for being part of keeping Keiko safe.